Hey everybody, how you doing? And welcome to the latest edition of the Oyé World Pod. I'm on my own this time because my partner, Spy, partner in crime, no, that doesn't sound right, but my partner, Spy, is away in Malta. He's actually starring as Othello, believe it or not. So hope you're doing well, mate, and we look forward to seeing you next time. But seeing as I am here alone, I have got a great guest with me. I have the one and only Mervyn Lynch, otherwise known as DJ Too Kind, but I just know him as Merv. Merv, good to see you. How are you?
Good, yeah. Thanks for getting me on this podcast. I've seen a couple of them, so,
You kind of know what to expect.
I sort of know what to expect, but...
Not too scary.
I'm not too scared. I'm okay. I'm relaxed.
Cool,
I'm good.
Cool. So, as usual, I'm going to be talking to our special guest, Merv, about little bits and pieces about music, about hobbies. It's going to be a very interesting listen. Merv, music, I've known you for the best part of 20 years. I've been in Liverpool 22 years. I remember first meeting you because I was a collector of vinyl.
Yep.
And I used to go to your record store.
Right,
which was in
the Palace. Yeah, the place. Ground floor. Well, the basement.
Basement,
Where all good record shops should be in the basement.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Static Records.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're going back there.
I'm going back, but like you was my saviour because in London, where I'd obviously moved from, record shops were...
You were spoiled.
A plethora.
You were spoiled.
I mean, you had, in Tottenham alone, we had like 4 or 5 really good record shops, like some Body Music, legendary places. And then each borough had its own kind of... And then you had up in the ones in the West End as well, which were like kind of a bit more exclusive, a bit more expensive if you wanted to get like white labels and stuff like that. But coming to Liverpool, I think when I came down there, you had like... I think our price had gone by then, but we had like HMV, Virgin maybe. Yeah,
just the mainstay, and that was the main reason why.
And then you had Hairy Records and places like that that did like second-hand stuff.
Three Beat they used to cater for hip-hop when they first opened, because that was the way we used to go.
Yeah.
But then as years went on, they became known as a house music kind of specialist. Their hip-hop selection sort of dipped a little bit, so we found ourselves, again, going back to Manchester, because that was our closest spot for specialist hip-hop record stores. And that was the reason, really, that I opened Static Records, because there was nowhere else selling the music that we wanted, or that I wanted to buy. And obviously people like yourself and so many people passed through. We actually only opened for 3 years, but it was certainly like the best 3 years, one of the best, some of the best years of my life, because there's no better experience for me.
Man. I used to dream of working in a record shop when I was the best. Up.
It is. I mean, the funny thing about record shops is that, unlike other shops, like if you have a clothes shop or a shop that sells trainees, people have got to have a certain income, or people with certain money. So you get a certain type of people that go to certain type of shops. Yeah. But in a record shop, you can have someone there who's a doctor, who's standing next to someone who's not even working, having a conversation about music. It does truly brings in the most widest, diverse amount of people who aren't only there just to shop, but they're here to have conversations with people just about music. And as you can imagine, that 2-3 times a week where a delivery would come in, where someone walks in with a fresh box of records, and you just open that box and just take them out, because then you could still sell vinyl pretty well. We just coming to the end of the point where DJs were still using vinyl quite often. People were still buying vinyl. So yeah, some of the best years was in that shop, definitely.
I mean, from a buyer's point of view, like when I first started buying vinyl, we used to get paid weekly. That's how old I am, by the way. And we used to get our pay packet in a little paper thing. You get like, I think my first wage packet was like £80 a week. I was working in a factory. And then that £80, like probably 80% of it would be spent on vinyl. Yeah. And I'd go there, and like it was like a marketplace where you just like the guys behind the counter would be playing what's come in on the Friday, and we're all standing there just waiting to hear, because certain records there's only going to be like 3 or 4 copies.
Exactly.
So it's almost like you had to get in there first and say, yeah, I'll have that, and get friendly with the guy behind the counter as if to say, look, you sort me out first, let me be one of your boys, you know. But yeah, vinyl was expensive as well.
I used to have to, because a guy called Kevin Filliman used to have a record shop in Liverpool before we opened ours called Pyramid Records. And I used to literally write post-dated checks because I had no money in the bank at the time. I was getting paid at the end of the month, so I'd write him a post-dated check. So every month he must have been happy going to the bank with about 6 or 7 post-dated checks of mine and cashing them in, because that's how much I wanted it, and I didn't want it to go to, as you say, they wouldn't stick around for long.
No.
And like, you know, some record shop owners would keep some behind for you, but that might be for a few days or whatnot.
Well, it's only when you start DJing, and then you get like a little bit of name, and then when you're DJing out, people then all of a sudden want to send you records for free. So the table's completely.
I used to love that as well.
Just that was like, oh, didn't you feel really sweet when like all of a sudden you get the post and you be with your mate and they're like, what's that? I was like, oh, I've just got a certain record. What, for free? Oh, yeah. They just want me to test them out, you know.
At one point we were on like Columbia, which included like Epic and all them. We were on Def Jam. We were on Sony. Wow. Well, Sony was the Columbia one, and then even when the Raucous label came out, like Mos Def and Talib Kweli, we were on their mailing list. So I used to get records sent by them. So it was just, I never got tired of getting records.
No
matter what they were, it was just an honour.
Yeah.
Because as you say, you'd happily pay for them.
Yeah.
So when you were getting them for free, it was even sweeter.
Okay. So let's move on a bit and talk about your musical history. What kind of did you listen to growing up? What was your, all right, we always say this, what did your parents play on a Sunday afternoon while they were making you clean the house and do your chores?
I mean, for me growing up, really, my mum was into, I mean, my earliest memories was John Holt.
Wow, me too.
And mate, that album, my mum would play like
1,000 Volts.
1,000 Volts.
Oh my God.
It's just one of the most incredible albums. I mean, and I just, that's what I remember. Sunday, and like many people's memory is Sunday afternoon, windows open, Hoover on, whatever.
Food being cooked,
and just listening to them tracks getting played. So that was it. My mum was into, obviously, like the Shy Lights and Stylistics and artists like that. She wasn't massive on Motown as such.
Okay.
But she was really into like the soulful side. But again, it always went back to John Holt and that album, which was
on heavy rotation. I'll tell you a story about that. I can't actually play it anymore because it was my mum's favourite album.
Really?
And when my mum passed away, like I used to play it when I used to go down and visit her in hospital while she was sick. And now, as soon as I hear it, I start welling up and I have to tell you, I haven't got past that period. I mean, it's been 3 or 4 years or whatever, but I ain't got past that period when I can play it again. Do you know what I mean?
I can understand that because like you were saying about food getting cooked. When I listen to the album, it brings smells back. Never mind, just memories. So that was around a lot. I'm the youngest in our house, so from then it went on to whatever. As many people who are the youngest in the family, it's whatever your older brother's listening to. And my brother Michael, he had a quite sizable record collection at the time. So he was into a lot of 80s like soul, very early hip hop. So he introduced me to the likes of Grandmaster Flash and Run DMC and Houdini, Mantronics. I used to love Mantronics. And then a lot of that 80s soul, you know, that SOS band, you know, 52nd Street Change. So that was then the second sort of chapter of me. I remember but I wasn't allowed to touch his system at all. I mean, our kids used to go through lengths. I mean, hiding the stylus, taking the fuse out.
Was he one of those that had the, the systems where you bought separates?
Separates, yeah. Marantz. Marantz was our kids' sort of style of choice. So, and he used to take the fuse out, or he'd try and trick me. He'd leave a certain record on the plate. And if that record wasn't on that plate when he got back, then boom, I'd be getting hit. So I used to have to go through all kinds. I used to take the record off, I'd put it on the bed, so I knew that was the record that was on there. I'd find where the fuse was, I'd put the fuse in the plug, find the stylus, all so I could listen to that music, because this selection was, in my eyes, like Bambaataa, Planet Rock, that kind of stuff. It was just incredible. So, and then as things went on then, I started discovering my own tastes then. And I sort of remember this like it was yesterday. I remember hearing KRS-One, well, Boogie Down Productions, The Bridge Is Over for the first time. So even though I'd always been around hip-hop, when I heard that, because our kid wasn't really into that, when I heard that, it was like, okay, this is mine. This is mine. And then that just sort of shaped me then going forward.
Wicked. So in terms of what seminal track would you pick from that period, that early hip-hop discovery period, should we call it?
From the early ones, if I'm looking at, I definitely look at Boogie Down Productions. So My Philosophy for me is a track that will always be, because it's very hard. Like normally people ask you your top artists, but when people talk about tracks, as you as a music lover yourself, you can't.
Too many, isn't it?
You can't narrow them down. But certainly, My Philosophy for me was just, again, something that it was about knowledge, it was about education. The music was just incredible. The cutting was incredible. The delivery of KRS-One was just second to none. Definitely one of the legends. So that was definitely a seminal track.
I concur with that. I actually was lucky enough, I was on holiday in Los Angeles and a friend of mine got us tickets to see KRS-One in LA. What's the name of that famous club in LA?
I've never been, so.
But he basically was performing there. We got tickets at the last minute, and it's a different atmosphere going to a gig in America. It's almost like they're partying from, when the warm-up DJs on. The warm-up DJ is almost like a hype man in a comedian, like a stand-up comic was performing. You'd have a warm-up act that kind of the DJ almost like takes that mantle and hypes up the crowd. So by the time KRS came on, like everybody was amped anyway. But honestly, one of the best performances I've ever seen. And then he done this thing that I'm sure you've seen where he just tells people to throw out subjects and he just freestyles off of them, and they're just all brilliant. Do you know what I mean? His
sound check. He has this thing where he comes on stage and he basically does a sound check, but he's rhyming and he's communicating with the sound man. And he's telling him what he wants, but he's rhyming, saying like, do this to that speaker, do that to this speaker. Yo, this mic is such and such. And we had as you probably know, he was in Liverpool for a period of time. A few years ago, when we had a chance to sit down and speak with him, we were only on Lodge Lane,
unbelievable,
sitting in a restaurant there and just speaking to him for about 2 hours, and it was just. And then through Gunnan, we got a chance to get him in Radio Merseyside. And the interview itself must have been about 2 hours long. He gave us so much of his time, so much of his knowledge, so much of his experience. And, obviously there's been some issues over the past and a little bit of controversy, but for me, without a shadow of a doubt, top 5.
On the mic, I believe that you should get loose. I haven't come to tell you I got juice. I just produce, create, innovate on a higher level. I'll be back, but for now, just sackle.
Did you hear the main thing was just said?
In about 4 seconds, a teacher will begin to speak. I play the 9 and you play the target. You all know my name, so I guess I'll just start it. Or should I say start this? I'm the artist. And new concepts in their heart.
I concur, like one of the best. So moving on a little bit more, I just wanted to, you talk about knowledge and stuff like that. What about the activism side of hip hop? People like, obviously, Public Enemy. How did they, was you into them or not really?
Massively. I mean, without doubt. If you're talking about the most, we can talk about who's the best rapper or who's the best group or who's the greatest artist, but if you're talking about the most important group, hip-hop group, you've got to put Public Enemy there as one of the most important, because they brought a lot of people into hip-hop who would never really been into it. Like Chuck D said, is that they purposely made songs that girls wouldn't like. That was their goal. Do you know what I mean? So, and then obviously you've got to add to that about the conscious elements and the education elements and the knowledge elements, and obviously they were inspired by some of the greats, from Malcolm X to Huey Newton to all these people. So the important messages that they put across and giving people sense of identity and stuff like that, but also in a way that brought other people in. because, like I say, people became Public Enemy fans who were normally rock music fans because of the type of music that they made, and the kind of image that they put across. It was no nonsense. It was proper revolutionary stuff. If you think about the S1Ws, who, you know, some more guys on the side of the stage with Uzis doing these moves, martial artists. All of them were full-on martial artists. Professor Griff, who was the leader of the S1Ws, was like a 10-dan martial artists, you know, a martial artist. So they had all that. They had every element, and then you obviously had the sort of chalk and cheese thing of Chuck D, then Flavor Flav, and as much of a character Flavor Flav is, and the troubles he went through, you would never had the Public Enemy if it wasn't for Flavor Flav.
Yeah.
Because he was, you know, he was their Bez or whatever. Do you know what I mean? He was that. He brought that extra element to them. So they were totally important, and you know, as important as like your Tupacs or whatever.
Well, even more so, I think, because, you know, as much as I admire Tupac and love his music and everything, you know, there's elements to his life that is a little bit controversial. Do you know what I mean? Kind of like people almost like overlook and say, oh, he was a poet and he was this and that, you know. Whereas I think Chuck D, you know, there wasn't ever any controversies about him apart from his music. And the controversies weren't because what he was saying was controversial. It was just that it was almost like shocking to the masses at that time, because it's like, oh my God, how dare these people stand up to the government, to record labels, to, you know, these are young black people, they can't do this, you know. It's almost like that. I got to see, I call Chuck D the Martin Luther King of rap. Because he's got that kind of like almost hypnotic delivery, preacher-like, but... It
sounds like four voices at once.
I was actually listening to a Public Enemy track on, and this is pure coincidence, on the way here, and I was actually thinking to myself at the time, man, this guy's voice is just hypnotic. You know them hip-hop voice, like Guru's another one. You know, they've got these voices that you just want to listen to, you know. But I was lucky enough to see Public Enemy with the Beastie Boys. Do you remember that tour where there was like a Def Jam tour?
Run DMC as well?
Run DMC.
Wow, I missed that tour.
Yeah.
One of the biggest regrets is that missing that tour.
I think it was in Hammersmith, Apollo, but yeah, that was unbelievable.
But it was crazy because if you think Welcome to the Terror Dome got banned from the radio, and to the point where it got into the charts, but Top of the Pops only played the instrumental version. And there's no cursing in it. There's no direct references to anything that's offensive. But it was just the strength of the movement, the power of Chuck D and Public Enemy, and the power of the message that got mainstream media, or whatever you want to call it at the time, shook. They were scared. They were scared. And, you know, people in the suburbs were scared that their little Timmy was coming in with a Public Enemy t-shirt or a Malcolm X book or something like that.
It was almost like a variant of punk in that.
100%.
Very, you know, so much anarchy in that music.
Exactly that, anarchy.
So yeah, Public Enemy, amazing. So let's move on. What about stuff like from the Daisy Age, as they say, De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, this sort of music? What did you think of that?
For me, that was quite easily my favourite era.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that came before it, the Public Enemy stuff, the KRS One, that was like my introduction, and certainly one of my best. And like Ice Cube and stuff like that. That was, but for me, as far as sonically, and something that actually I connected with even more so, as maybe it was the age I was at and the mentality at the time, but just the sheer art of it. So I'd say from 92, where sort of the Pete Rocks and CL Smooth started coming in, and then you had Tribe Called Quest, and then, well, you had De La Soul before that, because obviously De La Soul was 89, but then, for me, it was 92, 93 era for them as well. Even though I love Free Free High and Rising, I wasn't too keen on De La Soul Is Dead, and I never have been for some strange reason, but then from Balloon Mind State and on that, and then obviously you mentioned Tribe Called Quest, which...
Unbelievable.
Arguably one of the best hip-hop groups musically and to have ever done it, really. And Midnight Marauders we spoke about before, and Low End 30. It just incredible albums, and you just again, it's just like a landscape changing moment in music where, because you've got to remember, before '92, a lot of people were using James Brown samples, JBs, you know, Joe Tex, a lot of funk, a lot of, you know, quite often stuff that you'd heard before in your parents' collection or you'd heard in certain films. But that '92 era started where guys were going looking for the most rare, unheard jazz records and world music records. It wasn't about finding something that someone had heard before. It was about finding something that no one had heard before. And you hear legendary stories.
Talib Kweli was another one that did that
Talib Kweli, yeah. So and you hear legendary stories of these producers like Pete Rock and Q-Tip, because Q-Tip, even though when you see like a Tribe Called Quest, it says produced by a Tribe Called Quest, it was actually produced by Q-Tip. And it was like, it's like that Lennon McCartney thing, you know what I mean? It was an agreement that they had and they kept it. But all these used to search, I'm talking worldwide, and they'd never give up where they found these records. And they'd, you know, and so music just expanded then, and the sound of it and sonically just became just on the next level. And that went into people like Souls and Mischief and Far Side and so many others that just brought that incredible sound.
And it was very positive music as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there were some levels of, you know, as activism, but it was done in a lot more of a softer way. And I think that there were some of those messages in that music probably got lost on people because it was so melodic and sounded so palatable, especially for the mainstream. You know, just like they wouldn't want to play NWA and Public Enemy. They couldn't wait to play De La Soul or A Tribe Called Quest because they look a little bit more friendly and palatable and not so angry. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because you know, they sort of done away with, like, you know, the gold chains were gone and they were into more like African necklaces and different types of clothes and stuff. So people thought they were less threatening, but make no bones about it. Even though Queen Latifah would stand there with a black medallion on and a you know, African dress and whatever, she was one of the hardest out there. Like, there's stories about some of these artists, about their street level mentality that would make people's toes curl. Like, these were hard people from hard areas, do you know what I mean?
MC Light, these kind of characters.
Yeah, man, these were...
So talking about, let's move on to female artists, actually. It's always something I like to touch on. Who would you say, give me your top 5 off the head.
Female artists?
Rappers.
Female rappers.
Artists is way too hard, but rappers we might be able to...
Okay, so I'll go in straight...
It doesn't have to be in order.
No,
just be...
so straight away I'll jump in with... who many people might be or might not. So Bahamadia was out around like 91, 92. And if you haven't checked out Bahamadia before, she's like, in amongst Latifah and them, she's like the forerunner. She's the one that most female
American?
MCs... Yeah. Oh, you got to check out Bahamadia. She was just on the next level.
Okay.
MC Light, she was one of the first to do it. Yeah. So got to put it in there. Queen Latifah, got to put her in there.
What about Roxanne Shante, man?
Roxanne
Another old school. Like, she was the first female rapper I can remember. I'm probably a little bit older than you, but yeah, she's probably the first really good that wasn't almost like, there was a lot of what I would call. So there's a lot of gimmicky rappers out there at the time, a lot of female rappers, and she was the first serious one that I can remember. Yeah. Shantae.
I'm smart, intelligent, tasteful, and elegant. Seeing all you female MCs to be irrelevant. I make a large amount of rhymes up per day. And when I finish, go check the survey to see who's pumping. And I'm on top because when I start rapping, I rock non-stop, throwing death rhymes at you. Solid as a statue. Days amaze you with praise and be infatuated. Some hate it, but I don't care. It doesn't matter because you're looking at a queen, my dear.
Who else?
Yeah, because I mean, just touching on that, I think, because at the time, female rappers and female rap groups tend to be like, okay, you're female, so you're going to dress the same, you're going to dance, you're going to have a little thing, and, you know, and so I think Roxanne Shante she came out and she was battling guys. She was battling guys. Obviously, the legendary battles that she had. And to put in the 5th, you know, that's a tough one, really.
I know it's a group, and you were talking about what about Salt and Pepper?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've got to.
They crossed over. You've
got to, yeah.
But I think in some ways they did still keep their integrity with it.
And then you've got Money Love as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, originally from the UK.
From London, mate.
And then
Money Love.
Yeah, and then obviously she linked up with Native Tongues, who was like De La Soul, Jungle Brothers, Tribe Called Quest, and she done incredibly well. She was definitely.
She still lives in the States now, and I think I've seen her on some. You know, when they look back on programs and stuff like that, or eras, and she was on it, and she literally sounds American now because she's lived there that long.
She did then.
It's like me with my Scouse accent because I've lived in Liverpool.
Oh yeah,
for
you sound very Scouse stuff. Oh yeah.
But okay, so females we've covered. Have we left anyone out? What about anyone? What do you think of the kind of Cardi B's? You know, like I can't remember her name. Nicki Minaj. These.
I mean, right now. Go on. Sorry.
No, the point I was gonna make is, do you think that because you would never get people like Shantae, all the rappers that we mentioned before, who was the one who had the green eyes with the dreadlocks out of LA? What was her name? Yo-Yo.
Yo-Yo, of course, yeah.
Remember Yo-Yo?
Wow, yeah.
So these sort of rappers were very, and Money Love, pro-women, you know, sort of almost like trying to level up on men and sort of say, look, you can't treat us like this, we're going to show you. And these rappers of today that I mentioned in Nicki Minaj, Doja Cat was the other one I was thinking of, Cardi B, their lyrics are particularly explicit and they're not afraid. What's your feelings on that? Do you think that it's that men are doing it, so why can't they?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things here, because it's funny because when my daughter was doing a dissertation for uni a few years ago, she was looking for different things to do with on and out, and she ended up doing a part about sexualisation of children. So I said to her, go and listen to Lauryn Hill's album, Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Then go and listen to Nicki Minaj's Pink Friday album and look at the contrasting differences between those. And it was great because it made her listen to that album for the first time. She wouldn't listen to Lauryn Hill's album for the first time. She listened to it for the next 4 weeks. She already knew about... So, yeah, I mean, the contrast is vast. Some of the stuff that, you know, it's very X-rated, it's very... But then, on the flip side, one part of me thinks they're owning it. They're owning it. They're not doing it to try and be accepted or trying to fit in. Or they're doing it because that's what men want them to do. I think the likes of Nicki Minaj and Cardi B, they're doing it because they own it. They are fully in full control of their business affairs, music affairs, content. And they're fully comfortable with what they are and what they do. So in that respect, I say, well, yeah, because rather than... Why have, you know, if a man can rap about it and use women as subjects, then the women can own it and say, well, we'll rap about it because it is us. So personally, I have got no issue with the content because fellas have been doing it in hip hop for the last nearly 40 years. So why not?
Fair dues. I'm with you on that. I'm 100% with you on that. Okay, so let's move on to a next subject. What about house music? Any? Because obviously I come from. So I've had people would have heard on this program, you know, all types of music all through my life. But I went through a period where I was DJing house between sort of 1989 to the mid 90s and stuff. So I really got into particularly US house, Detroit, Chicago, New York. You know, I used to travel to Amsterdam to get records and intercept them from before they got to the UK, so I got them first, you know what I mean? So when I got back to the UK, people were like, where the hell's these come from? I was like, oh, you'll be seeing them in about 6 weeks time, you know, those sort of run-ins. So I was heavy into my music, like competitively, buying, as I said, and also DJing. Where do you come in the house? Did it pass you by, or did you dip in? Funnily, you will remember this because there was an era in hip hop where house.
The hip house, the amazing hip house. So we had Fast Eddie.
Fast
You had Tyrese.
Tyree Cooper. The producer. Awesome super duper trooper.
Blaps crew and whatever. Blaps posse was it?
Yeah.
And don't forget, there was that period in hip hop where if you bought an album in like 89, 90, right? You remember this? It'd have your hip hop tracks on there. It'd have some real cheesy reggae track on there, and then it'd have some hip house tracks on there. So, but it wasn't really for me. It wasn't really my thing. I mean, as I've got older, I've embraced it more, and some of the soulful house, which I got really into. I'm saying, when I had the record shop, we used to get quite a lot. So there was some amazing like Float remixes and Go Pelly and stuff like that.
Well, you'd have a 12 and it would have the R&B mix and it'd have a house mix invariably, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say I was necessarily into it, but I do. It's one of those musics along with a few others like reggae you can put in there and certain other jazz you could sort of put in there where.
You've got a few favourites.
D&B and dub and bass and jungle where I wish I took more time to check it out. But from a personal point of view, for me, from 89 to like 2004, really, I was just hip hop. A few guilty pleasures in there.
Do you know why I knew about what you was going to say about the hip house? Because that was a way for us house heads to get the hip hop boys into house, like play that and they go, oh yeah, that's a tune there, and you almost like trying to bring them over a bit. I mean, none of them really come over, but that would make them at least be able to dance to a few tunes.
Because you remember the Snap tune, Power? And that was a Chill Rob G song.
I actually, I'll keep saying this though, I actually saw Snap in concert at Wembley. Now, were they supporting someone? They were supporting MC Hammer.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a mad concert. And I think a few weeks later, or a few months later, was Michael Jackson supported by Criss Cross. At Wembley Stadium.
Man. But yeah, so that was a Chill Rob G song. Like the lyrics that he used, that guy, that fraud of a guy uses on that Snap tune. But it's funny because like Milli Vanilli got like cancelled for that. Whereas next minute, this guy's doing the exact same lyrics from Chill Rob G, Power Song. And it become a big European hit. He probably couldn't go anywhere near the States. He'd probably get done in, probably. Get jacked.
Check this out.
Girl, I'll house you. Girl, I'll house you. Girl, I'll house you. You in my hut now, my hut. Girl, I'll house you. Girl, I'll house you. Girl, I'll house you. You in my hut now. When you're in my hut, you know what's up. Let your mind be free. Relax your body. Jump, jump. A little higher. Jump, jump.
Okay, so what about any other music that you might have... what about anything in terms of indie or rock or never ever sort of...
No, yeah, I mean, obviously like everyone, I've got like a few guilty pleasures. So like if you look through my CDs, whatever, I used to love The Police. Not The Police. Let's make that clear. Not The Police. Sting. Yeah.
Stuart
Copeland. Yeah.
Andy Summer, is it? Or what was the third guy's name? Poor guy, man.
Poor guy. What was
everyone knows Sting and Copeland, and my man's like,
Sting, Copeland.
Ringoed off.
You're the guy. So yeah. So I mean, growing up, that was through my older brother and David. So he got me into The Police. Phil Collins, I was into quite a bit. Oddly enough, Jean-Michel Jarre got played a lot by my older brother.
Yeah,
so
I see some of the concerts because the visuals were amazing.
Yeah. So there was that, and then I remained a bit of a Sting fan. So I had a guilty pleasure of mine. That 10 Summoner's Tales. I was only listening to that the other day.
Okay.
And there's some like Craig David sampled the track off it, and loads of people sampled tracks off it.
Yeah, I've got the Police greatest hits in my collection because there is just so much tunes in there. It reminds me of growing up because I was between 80 and 85. I would have been in secondary school, and they were quite big.
And most of it was reggae, really, basically.
Oh, very. And that's the only reggae you heard on mainstream TV. That and UB40. So. You could properly tap into it. And Musical Youth. I was thinking about them today. Does anybody remember Musical Youth?
Of course I do, Pastor Dutchie.
Oh my God, I was actually thinking, they've almost been not cancelled, but
no,
forgotten.
but yeah, I think one passed away, didn't they? And one had loads of trouble.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a story behind them.
Yeah.
But I think 2 of them are still.
But you don't hear, like, retrospectively, you know, all these 80... Like, sometimes my wife always laughs at me because, like, on a Friday morning, like, for a guilty pleasure, when I used to get... have my shower, I normally listen to Talk Sport in the morning.
Yeah.
But on a Friday, I used to put on Absolute 80s, right? Just so I could reminisce about school.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because every tune there, like, you talk about school disco tunes, I'm talking like Duran and, you know, Nick Kershaw and all this mad music, do you know what I mean? But I used to do it just to get that. Remember you were talking about earlier where you hear a tune and not only can you remember where you were, you can think of the smells and that. And it was almost like I was doing, it wasn't nothing to do with the music per se, it was just where I was at the time.
When I was about 11, I used to be allowed to buy 1 record a week, like a 7-inch. And so that would be me. I'd be getting like Howard Jones, Nick Kershaw, Prince. I remember getting Prince that day, and When Doves Crying, 1999 on the B-side.
I've got a 12 of that.
So all that music was just, because it's part of your life, isn't it? You know, when you're at that age, it's just...
You haven't really got any, just like kids when it comes to like race and you haven't really got any preconceptions about anything, have you? Nobody's sort of saying, no, don't listen to that, it's crap, I don't know. You're too young to, you know, so it takes time for you to develop your musical taste. And sometimes even in school, I remember like people would be into music and you could tell that some people weren't really into it, but it was just cool to be into it. And I want, just like anything, you just want to follow the crowd.
And also, every Thursday night, the whole nation would sit around and listen and watch Top of the Pops with me. So
that was it. Top of the Pops, Radio 1.
But you know what's crazy now when I watch these like Top of the Pops reruns, like some of the songs I don't even remember even existing.
Yeah.
Like I used to watch it every week, and I don't even, I've never even heard of this. Or I never knew that person had the second song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or like it'll be like a band that you know all their tunes, and then they've got this tune. Like, where did they come into the mix?
Never heard of it.
I know we're digressing a bit, but I like watching the reruns when they've got the subtitles and they start telling you about where the history of the record.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I found out an interesting one linked to Liverpool was Tapao. I didn't know she was Carol Decker. I didn't know that until I saw that. And it tells the story of China in Duhaney. Apparently, the way they got famous was they used them for a denim jeans advert. I can't remember the name of the brand. It might be Wrangler or something like that in America. And this wasn't China in Your Hand. No. Another tune. And everyone was like, oh, the song from the jeans advert. Do you know what I mean? In America. Who is it? Tapao. This tune that I still don't know, went to #1 in America. Yeah. Second tune, I think, was China in the Hand. #1 in the UK. So these total unknowns from Liverpool end up having a record.
They were huge in America.
Huge, yeah. I thought they were American when they first came out.
She lived for about 5 years in like the Waldorf Astoria or something. She lived there.
Yeah.
That's how much money she made. She lived. Yeah. That was her address.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Brilliant.
It's him or me. Monday, I couldn't wait till Tuesday. If I make up my mind, Wednesday would be fine. Thursday's on my mind. Friday give me time. Saturday could wait. Sunday'd be too late.
So the final
this
thing...
is not me doing my hip hop credibility any good, by the way. You know.
But this is what this show's about. This is like a therapy session in music,
like,
you know.
Carol Decker Fox.
We're showing our musical nerdness, man. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about is not on music. This is like your whole kind of career is musical career is centered around music, obviously. But what I wanted to just try and delve into, any hobbies or anything other than music that you would kind of like that people might not know and might find interested, or you just want to say?
You know what? It's funny because my wife, will probably my long-suffering wife Gina, same as yours.
Both married to Gina.
like I'm into something new all the time, like hobby wise. I mean, I do like cycling, I do like running, whatever. But gadgets are my thing. Like I'm mad on gadgets. It's just like stupid. Like I get gadgets to go with gadgets, or do you know what I mean? Or if I see something that's like, it could be something stupid like, oh, this converts VHS to audio tape. I'm like, I'll get it, click, I'll get it. I get things I don't need. You know, a torch with a DAB radio in it. You know what I mean? I'm just a bit.
So
I'm mad for gadgets. Like I'm just mad for them.
Are they a passing fad, or do you actually use them?
You know what? Lockdown saved, like, justified every purchase I've made, because I probably used every gadget. I converted tapes. I had time to convert tapes to audio. I had time to do this. I had a GoPro that I had never used that turned into, you know, a streaming thing and stuff like that. So yeah, I've got wallet. I've got a wallet that's a gadget. No one uses wallets anymore. I'm
trying to get to the bottom of this. So what is the fixation? Is it the actual technology, or the fact that something new's come out that can make your life easier?
I think it might, or maybe just like TV shows growing up, you know. I think like
Tomorrow's World.
Watching. Yeah, I just find like anything that's, you know, I don't know. Like I've got this coffee machine, and then they brought out like a stand where you can put the pods in. So I wanted that.
I've got that. Oh my God, maybe I've got it as well.
Yeah. So the kitchen's full of gadgets. Honestly, if it does something, I'm in.
That's funny, you know. So I got one of the best Christmas presents I ever got, because I love coffee. It was from my mother-in-law. Big up Mary out there.
Big up Mary.
She got me a coffee machine, like an espresso coffee machine, Virtuo, I think it's called, with the pods.
Yeah.
And like you, like, I've got the coffee machine, so I thought, oh, what else can I get? So I got the mugs, like these glass mugs. What else can I get? So I got a recycling bin, right, which is right next to it. And my wife's like, so you're going to put the pods in the recycling bin and then go and put them in the recycling bag and then go, what is the point? Do you know? So I must have a little bit of that in me as well. Do you know what I mean?
I just, I do love, but then the other thing that probably a lot of people, because obviously people see me doing music a lot, and whether it's from the record shop or radio or events or obviously DJing, which is a large part of what I've done over the years. But then what people don't realise is that for the last 30 odd years, I've worked full time. I've worked with some of the city's most vulnerable people, mainly in homelessness. And I set up the Homeless Football League and stuff like that. So people are often surprised when they find out, they say, oh, do you work as well? So yeah, because DJing doesn't always pay the bills. And so I know I'm lucky enough to work in a job that does give a lot of satisfaction, that is way away from music. Now I'm in mental health at the moment now. But the time in the homeless service was really like rewarding and stuff. So that's what people might be surprised to know.
That's really good to know, and it's brilliant that, you know, I think all the guests that we've had on these podcasts have all been, you know, passionate about giving something back to their community. Do you know what I mean? Which is really commendable, and it's everything that we stand for as an organisation as well. I
mean, Gunan's chess one threw me a little bit, and the fact that she watched Kerrang. I found that a bit crazy as well. So
I love it, man. I love
amazing. I was listening. I was like, Kerrang, Gunan, really?
Yeah. No, I don't think. I'm guessing you never went anywhere near like heavy metal.
No, it was never. Again, there was a little thing with Chuck D. Obviously, we had Public Enemy.
Anthrax,
in the album with Anthrax.
Yeah.
Ice-T, Don't Stuff With Body Count.
Here I go again. I actually met the band. Ice-T's band Body Count. I played pool with the drummer in a bar in LA, which was unbelievable.
Wow! Yeah. And he still tours with them to this day.
The same band.
He still tours with Body Count to this day. Yeah. I seen he posted something up saying still touring with Body Count. I was like, whoa.
Nice. Okay, so I think that we've really upped the content, and there's probably going to have to edit some stuff down, and we're probably going to have to do a part 2. So I think we've come to the end of the show. Merv, I want to thank you so much. There's one more little story, actually, I want you to tell. So Merv's DJ name is DJ Too Kind.
Oh, yeah.
And I've just known him as Too Kind or Merv all these years. I've never actually delved into how the name Toucan came about? Because there's always a story. This is Liverpool. So I asked him the other day actually, and this is what he told me.
Right. So yeah. So I mean, you've sort of talked it up a bit better than it actually is going to be. So for anyone who's watching, I'm sorry about the anticlimax.
I'm not trying to big it up like that. I'm just trying to say it's a simple story, but this is how things happen in Liverpool. How you get nicknames.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, because I used to be an MC first. So when I started rapping, I didn't actually have a rap name. So I was thinking about a rap name. What can it be? So because I was actually an MC before I was a DJ. So when we used to go out to town, there was obviously we'd go out en masse, 15, 20 of us go to a club. Town would close at 2 o'clock. There was none of this 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock business. Town would close at 2 o'clock. Everyone leaves. It's like leaving a football stadium at 2 o'clock in the morning. So we'd all just head to the whatever chippy we'd go to. Because we were young and a little bit stupid, so we'd just go to the front of the queue. No matter who was in the queue, they'd all go. 10, 15 man just go to the front of the queue. However, me being nice, I just joined the queue, orderly, not going to cause no problems.
You know what's coming.
So my mate turned around to me and said, you know what, Merv, you're just too kind. And that was it. The name, I thought, that is the name I've been looking for. And then that was the birth of MC Toucan, who went on to be DJ Toucan, and then the Toucans that's sitting here now, speaking to P.
And you're definitely Toucan. But I love that story, and that's how we're going to leave it. Merv, thank you very much for joining us, man. And hopefully we'll have a part 2 someday.
Yeah, much to talk about, man. Much to talk about.
Cheers.